Happy Monday. Welcome to the Prop Queen Pod. We're going through the next hour talking all things you need to know going into today's Monday Night Football game between the Texans and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll got a little NBA as well because Jared Block from Trinity Analytics is going to join the show in about 10 minutes. We're going to talk Monday Night Football props. We'll talk a little NBA. I think it's Jaylen Brown's out for the Celtics tonight, so Jared said that he's got a few ways to play without him. So let's talk about that. I hope you guys all had a very profitable weekend. I just want to tweet out that the show is live, talking Monday Night Football best prop bets and some NBA with Jared R. Block. Tune in now. We had a really good weekend, actually. What did I think of the wild card game so far, Craig Abel? Every game was great until last night. And then last night just sucked. Last night was not fun. Last night was not a fun way to close out wild card weekend, even though I know today's really closing it out. But I had a great wild card weekend, even though yesterday's game sucked. Still hit my props. For anyone that follows on social media, you would know by now that I went 6-0 this weekend, thanks to using the prop guide at thepropqueen.com. It was super helpful. Sick all weekend, got eliminated from Survivor. No! I'm still alive in some spots. I've got to double check Survivor. The problem is I never seem to be able to have a good prop and good sides weekend. It always goes one or the other, maybe 50-50. I had an absolutely fantastic props weekend, as you could see, which is good because it's good for the brand. Then when it came to sides, so here's what happened to me in my pick'em pool. I'm in this pick'em pool that it was like $300, $400 buy-in, and I can make like $4 or $5 grand if I'm at the top of the leaderboard. To which I thought we were just a regular season pick'em pool. At the end of week 18, I'm number 1. I'm like, oh my God, I win. The guy who runs the contest goes, we go through the playoffs. Then, of course, this entire freaking weekend, I just imploded against the spread. The freaking Jaguars suck. Who else screwed me? The Packers suck. Screw them. Screw the Packers and screw the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence throwing a game-sealing interception. The Packers allowing the Bears to come back like that. I was pissed. Freaking pissed. And the fact the Chargers didn't even freaking show up yesterday night. Like, what the hell was that? The Patriots knew. I don't understand why the Chargers weren't. I mean, they kind of were attacked this way all year. But the Chargers got absolutely destroyed in the trenches. Justin Herbert was getting slammed. The Chargers didn't show up at all offensively, and the Patriots rolled last night. They covered the spread. I can't believe that the 49ers upset the Eagles in Philly. And that just shows you how it is really tough to just, if you're going to just go off line movement, it's not great. The Philadelphia Eagles opened as 3-point favorites last Sunday. They ended up losing the game outright, and that line hit 6. We saw that line go from 3 to 6, and the Niners still won that game. The 49ers have been an absolute idol. In the NFL, all we ever do is talk about injuries. When people have injuries to their team, oh, well, we had a bad year because of injuries. Oh, well, we're struggling because of injuries. The Ravens, oh, we were struggling because Lamar was out, even though Tyler Huntley did great. But the point is, everyone loves to blame injuries. Here come the San Francisco freaking 49ers, who have had injuries upon injuries. Granted, some people who are commenting on my video on Instagram, at Ari Epst, if you don't follow Ari Epst on Instagram, I had a post from last night that blew up because I basically said this. We cannot blame injuries. The 49ers have prevailed past every freaking injury. The 49ers have had every massive player on their roster get hurt. Don't get me wrong. Maybe it catches up to them in the next round or two. But they also get back some defensive pieces. I think they said Fred Warner could come back for the NFC Championship game. They've lost Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, a few other linebackers. I mean, their entire linebacking core is pretty much out. And now they lost George Kittle, of course, for the next year and a half with the Achilles injury. Ricky Pearsall, one of their top wide receivers, also has been in and out of the in the lineup this year. Their own quarterback, Brock Purdy, was hurt. Yet here we are, the San Francisco 49ers upsetting the Philadelphia Eagles, who were one of the Super Bowl frontrunners. It's incredible to me what the San Francisco 49ers have been able to do in the last few weeks, nonetheless. Nonetheless, since week 4, this team was down and out in October with all the injuries. The 49ers are catching 7 in Seattle. I am curious how that line will move. Again, no Kittle. But honestly, Kittle on the road hasn't even been a huge factor either. I know that you could say decoy, whatnot, but Kittle at home is really the big target. The Niners to be a division foe in the playoffs, playing this well, catching 7 seems like a lot of points. The same way the Rams laying 10.5 in Carolina felt like too many points. And that was too many points. So I don't know if I could trust the 7. Now, granted, right now would be a pretty good teaser spot if you want to get the Seattle Seahawks in a 6.5 point teaser. Basically, just get them to win the game. This would be the time to tease the Seahawks down if you feel the 49ers run is going down. Who do you tease it with? Well, if you tease the Broncos to plus 7.5 as a home dog, those could be 2 decent teaser spots. So the Bills really, the Bills are laying 1.5 on the road in altitude in Denver. San Fran catching 7 is a surprise. The Bears actually being 3.5 point dogs at home is actually a good number. Any of these teams, again, Kelly in Vegas has her theories that you can't tease anything that's not like a 2.5 because that's the way the numbers indicate that it's a good number. But I don't mind if you get anything through a key number. And if you're going to get 2 home dogs through a key number and a teaser, you're going to get the Seahawks down to basically a pick 'em. And yes, that's what Kelly said also. She was teasing with Indiana. I think she teased, Kelly actually last night teased, and my friend Chris did it too. They teased the Bills or the Jags. Nope, they teased the Bills because the Jags flipped to a favorite. So once the Jags flipped to a favorite, they teased the Bills up to get them at plus 7.5, and they were able to tease them with Indiana. So if you want to tease the Seahawks down and with Indiana, go for it. Rules are meant to be broken, people, aren't they? So I guess we're teasing college football. Just for the sake of it, right? We've got props to give out too, and our next guest is going to help us with those. Also curious if there's any prop edges that stand out, just early looks going into next week, because I could tell you, the unfortunate part about the 49ers playing the Seahawks is that the Christian McCaffrey receiving yards number is going to be way too high, and that's very unfortunate. But we could go with the Denver running back against the Bills catch balls out of the backfield. Same goes for the Bears. A lot of pass catching backs that are going to play an impact at some point in the divisional round of the playoffs. But I will have that in the Prop Queen guide for the divisional round. If anyone wants it, go get it. We'll have propaganda after Jared Block's segment. And Jay Main just made me think about this because you're going to want to hear propaganda. You're going to want to hear it. Obey the rules over there, Joseph Rodriguez. If you don't obey Kelly's rules, she gets pissed, especially if you're in a contest with her. But then it's funny when Kelly makes the rules against her rules because of certain situations that make no sense. So, yeah, be careful who your friends are. Be careful who you join contests with because people have very interesting rules, and you can't break them, but they can. They can. She'll laugh at me. Anyway, Jared Block joining the show from over at Trinity Analytics. What's up, Jared?
What's up? I just got off my show, and it's been a crazy day. Though I didn't expect it. Only 7 games total between 2 sports, but I am just slammed right now.
Yeah, well, the NBA doesn't do us any favors, but this game in particular between the Texans and the Steelers, I feel like, and I know this is so bad to say, I'm either going to get this handicap spot on or I'm going to be completely wrong, and there's not going to be this in between. How do you see the Texans and Steelers game playing out?
it seems to be the trend because I'm obviously seeing the same thing, and I was here last week on Monday saying that the Houston Texans were just going to be, but they were going to be my survivor pick. So after this weekend, I feel a lot less safe with that. So yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes. What last night was the only game that didn't go down to the 2-minute warning flip of any of the games that happened this weekend. I don't know. There's just a lot of worlds where I see the math and the excitement of the postseason completely clashing in opposite directions. So
the trends just aren't working in the Texans' favor. The Pittsburgh Steelers have an absolutely insane Monday Night Football record under their head coach Mike Tomlin, and the Texans on the road in the playoffs in general under CJ Stroud, they feel just as untrustworthy as Justin Herbert and the Chargers. How much stake are you putting in that?
I'd like to say none, but at the same time, the numbers do scream that, right? And it's in a situation where Houston's outside, Pittsburgh playing in it's just above freezing temperatures tonight. The nice thing for us is that there's barely any wind, and we'll get there with where that conversation is going. But yeah, taking on an Aaron Rodgers led offense in 30-degree weather with DK Metcalf back. I know the defense is extremely good, and we've talked a lot about Houston's defense all year. But at the same time, it does feel like we will have a very similar situation to what happened to Justin Herbert last night. I could see a very similar situation for Rodgers if things don't go
well. Joseph Rodriguez says, so do you roll with the veterans? They've been there and done that. But I feel like it's a hard question to ask because CJ Stroud has been in the playoffs. This isn't like his first rodeo.
And overperformed. I don't know. So for me, look, I think that when you look at the last month of the year, yeah, Houston was a bit more disappointing against tight ends. They certainly, have had their lapses defensively. But when it comes to just what the Steelers have allowed, I know that didn't necessarily show up in some of the more recent games. I think that tight ends can still destroy them. I still think that they can get really, really beat in the receiving game in terms of running backs against them. So there's worlds where they definitely I know again, we've had a couple of examples of this recently where offenses have underperformed against Pittsburgh, and it's hard to grasp that because one of them was obviously that Baltimore game, and then another one was that Lions game, and both of those.
I wasn't gonna bring up.
Hey, I gotta bring it up. We can talk about that separately. I got things to say, but when you're looking for recency trends, because again, when you asked me last week, what do I look at when I look at this far into the season? I'm looking at last 4-week data, and a lot of that's pointing towards Pittsburgh being the obvious worst defense, though they have stepped it up recently.
Let's look at the list of props that you're going to be eyeing for tonight's game, starting with Kenneth Gainwell over receiving yards. How come we're going with the pass catch and back?
I do think that, why I have had this fall short on me a couple of times recently. I feel more confident today knowing two things. Knowing, number one, I do see DK Metcalf helping every receiver in this offense at least attract some attention and create more one-on-one scenarios. And so that should help Gainwell in general. It should also help guys like Freiermuth as well. But we also know that Houston, one of the only things that they are doing poorly right now is they're allowing a lot of receiving yards to running backs. They're allowing the 5th most. It's actually one spot above the Steelers. Mm-hmm. So I do feel like if you're going to attack that, you can go with both. I don't mind Jalen Warren in the receiving game as well, but in terms of the target share and the amount of chances that you're going to have,
how do you choose between the two?
Well, that's the thing. I think you just take the target share that Jalen Warren's presented that Gainwell's presented over the last 2 months. And I know that it didn't really come to fruition against the Ravens. Would say that that's just a different game in general. And I feel like,
Well, a divisional rival is always going to feel a little bit different when you face each other now a third or a second time of the year. And you guys know each other well. Your head coaches know each other well. Different when you're facing a non-divisional opponent.
Baltimore could also scheme in a game that they knew that DK Metcalf wasn't playing in. So you also lost Arnell Washington too, which is a huge thing for them. With that said, in terms of receiving yards allowed to running backs the last 4 weeks, it is 3rd Baltimore, 5th Houston, 6th Pittsburgh. So if you think that the spot is good for Gainwell, I'm going back to it. And I think it is as good as it could be.
I have a feeling we're on opposite sides of this one. Pat Fryermuth, you're looking at receiving yards. Everyone who follows me on X, which is majority of this audience, they know I'm on the under today. In fact, I gave it out in the guide under 35.5. That thing dropped to 31.5. You thinking it's too low now?
It might be a little bit too low, though. I will say, so again, like the pros, I kind of already went over them. DK Metcalf being back helps. I do think that this is a situation where, and this has already been kind of baked in. So we've seen Rodgers just, he averages one of the fewest times to throw in the NFL, and that's only going to be put on steroids in a matchup like this. So yeah, I'm looking at the main focus being that Metcalf is back and Washington is out, and if that burns me just because the number went to a point where it started too high, maybe that is what that is. I'll live with that. But yeah, I do think it's a spot where Fryermuth's just gonna have to overperform one time, and I do think it's worth it for a defense that has allowed the 8th most receiving yards to tight ends over the last 4 weeks. I don't feel great about it, but I do think that this game is quite hard to cap from a prop standpoint, and you got to take chances somewhere.
Yeah, I'm really pissed at myself because I'm the a-hole that says to everyone, use the prop guide and bet early. Don't miss the number.
Yeah.
I waited on this one just because, I don't know. I was like, oh, it's Monday night. It's far away. Let me see how I do this weekend. Let me see if I want to bet it. And then I looked and I'm like, holy crap, that thing dropped from 35.5 to 31.5. And now I'm an absolute freaking moron. So I didn't listen to my own advice and I deserve to get burned. I hope I don't. I hope that he has 20 receiving yards today, which is what my number is about 18 to 20 receiving yards for Pat Fryermuth tonight. Just based off overall this season, the Texans have been good against tight ends, just maybe not in the last month.
Yep.
But I guess we'll go head to head on that one. CJ Stroud, we might be on the same page here. Over on the passing yards for me. I like a lot of CJ Stroud overs, but I did feel that the numbers, according to my numbers, were pretty spot on, which is why I didn't give it out.
In the month of December, they're the worst playoff team in terms of passing yards allowed was the Steelers. And so I do think that we did see some underperformance, especially like I was really expecting the Lions to just completely eviscerate them a couple of weeks ago, and that ended up not working out. I do think that this is a spot where no one's going to be able to touch Nico Collins. I think he's in a tremendous spot. I really like what Dalton Schultz brings to the table. You get a full, healthy set of running backs as well. And I just feel like this is a spot where the Texans should be able to have success. So I'm cool. I'm still cool with Nico Collins in general, but with everybody being back and healthy, I think that the best way to go about this is to just go Stroud overs.
Why Stroud passing yards as opposed to like over completions or over pass attempts?
I like the yards allowed number more than like there's definitely, I think, at least in my head, there's definitely a world in the script that I see playing out where Houston wants to get things going early, and if they have early success with Collins, that could bleed into a situation where you're really hoping that he gets all of the yards early, and then you might see them start to put their foot on the gas in terms of like, so let's just run the ball and get out of this game situation. So that could fall short from an
John Harbaugh's not running their team, so they might actually continue to, change it up a little bit on the Steelers.
Yeah. That's my script going in. I think that Houston wins comfortably. I think it is a very similar situation to last night where we could just see Houston jump out early offensively, and then I hate to talk about Rodgers this way because I think that he can win with his mind in most matchups, but I don't know how he's going to hold up with this defense tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I said this to you earlier. We just need the Houston Texans to take the Patriots approach, win in the trenches, and absolutely put a ton of pressure on Aaron Rodgers tonight. If that's the case, the Houston Texans also being ahead, maybe not having to go for it much on fourth down, could just start kicking field goals. Amy Fairbairn, he's been one of the most reliable kickers in the league. You see him going over what, 1.5 field goals today? Is that the number? 1.5, 2.5?
Yeah, it's going to be like a juiced 1.5, but I think it's worth the squeeze today specifically. This is like one of the Props.cash. Like if I don't have, I'll use this as a cop out. But if I'm finding like a lack of edge within the market, I'll always look at the Kyrie Fairbairn field goal market because it's been one of the most ridiculous things that has hit. And I brought up the win.
Should I bring it up? Should I like share
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this year away games, it's insane. You go back to like the last 20 and things get pretty ridiculous. Like it's.
Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Let me get this up on
It's
the
not
screen.
as good as it was if this game was in Houston, just because there's no weather factor. But I brought it up earlier. There's little to no wind in this game, and I think
last 20 overall. That's a lot of freaking green.
Yeah,
on the
it's
road.
like they just have this ultimate trust of this guy. So.
But it's minus like 190. So what, you're throwing that into parlay?
I know. You're going to have to do that, yeah. I think that's another place to go here would be you can do the kicking points too, though that does rely upon at least 2 field goals and probably 2 touchdowns. So I'm cool with most, if not all, Fairbairn markets. Last thing I'll say, again, I do think that the wind being a non-factor is great. We'll also just say that this is like the hardest in terms of like mathematical stadium approaches. This is one of the hardest field goals places to kick field goals in.
Well, especially when you have a freaking priest that's blessing your end zone, a-holes in Pittsburgh. God.
Yeah, no.
Why don't you bless the other end zone, freaks?
I think Fairbairn is one of the more solid things to look at in terms of consistency. You're not going to find much more consistency other than like Cam Little.
Yeah, Cam Little. Rest in peace, Jaguars. And Chris Boswell last week. I mean, he missed that extra point. And honestly, everyone was going after Tyler Loop, but Chris Boswell got real damn lucky that Tyler Loop missed that.
Jake Elliott missed an extra point too. And let's not even talk about Brandon McManus. He's not going to be in Green Bay next year.
What's going to happen with your Packers before we switch over to the NBA?
They'll probably sign LaFleur this week to an extension. He has.
You're going to be the Ravens of 2025.
We talked about it earlier. I think I didn't have it in front of me, but I have it. I saw it later, but he has a .650 career winning percentage with the Packers, and that's his only head coaching gig. I did not know this before, and I really regret knowing it now. But guess who was on the coaching staff for the 28-3 Super Bowl? Matt LaFleur.
Oh.
Yeah, so I didn't know that he was on the Falcons sideline for that game. That makes me feel a lot worse about things.
Well, I mean, at least it wasn't the Super Bowl.
No,
I meant like this year.
I know.
Like the other day.
Seriously. No, but again, like you lose. There's so many like unbelievable stats regarding the Packers blowing games. The main thing there is like you're 0-5 without Parsons, and that's what really sticks out on paper. So you can bring up all the LaFleur stuff. He is definitely like the worst second half coach in football this year. So,
are you fading the Bears next week?
I have to. I mean, it's in my blood. I have to.
Oh, you poor fans. I really don't feel that bad, though, because I just went through it. And
no,
truthfully, here's the crazy part. And I should have started the show with this. My ass would have been in Baltimore tonight. So you're welcome that I'm not freezing my butt off at M&T Bank Stadium right now, waiting at the tailgate to get in because there would have been no show. I would have had to have been there watching the Ravens probably lose to the Texans tonight. So I'm very glad that I am warm and cozy in a sweater inside my apartment and don't need to worry about watching the Ravens blow a second half lead against the Texans at home in front of a home crowd in prime time on Monday Night Football. Let's go to the NBA before I get mad. NBA tonight, injury, big key injury in Boston. Talk about it.
Yeah, so the Celtics have played 2 games without Jaylen Brown this year, who is doubtful. He should be ruled out relatively shortly. So with that, there's not a huge sample size of this, right? Because now you have to also remember that Tatum is out, and I know people know that by default, but it truly is like one of the only times that we've seen JB and JT both miss games, and we're starting to get a little bit bigger of a sample with that. So in those games, we've seen Peyton Pritchard record PRA markets of 34 and 50, and flipping that in those two games, Derek White 46 and 27. So it feels like one's got a good game and the other one takes the back seat and vice versa, which I know doesn't really help many people, but we at Trinity Analytics dove into more of what that would look like in this matchup today. Went really hard on the narrative of saying like this was if Jaylen Brown were to play. Again, doubtful, so probably not playing. This is like the team that he would have thrived against. He is a ridiculously strong usage player, has the second highest usage rate in the NBA. So there's a lot that's going to go around here. He was also driving a ton and getting to the basket, and he ranked like top 10 in the paint and in the mid-range over the past 30 days, which is why you saw a bunch of 30-point games consecutively for him. The guy that's going to take advantage of the driving and getting into these zones. The Pacers are a bottom 10 team against mid-range scorers as well as paint scorers over their last 30 days. That's going to be Peyton Pritchard. He's averaging right now 11 drives per game this year, which ranks 44th in the league. It's not like a huge let's like absolutely hammer this prop situation, but it is the most drives of any Boston Celtics player not named Jaylen Brown. And so from a profiling angle, we know that that is going to translate. And then we've seen in the two games, I'm just going to bring this up from my notes. In the two games that Jaylen Brown missed this year, Peyton Pritchard was averaging 4.3 field goals more in those two games than he is usually taking over the course of this year. So he's taking the same amount of threes, but he's taking more drives and actual field goal attempts when JB's out. So if there's a guy that's going to take advantage of this, it will likely be Peyton Pritchard.
Just Rodriguez said Sam Hauser, I assume, over threes.
It's currently questionable, but I do think that he would get the start, and I do think that that would be the most logical way to play him.
We've also got a huge spread. The Cleveland Cavaliers are laying a hefty 13 against the terrible, one of the worst defenses in the NBA for the last 2 years, Utah Jazz. How the hell do we handicap a 13-point spread in the NBA without just saying, oh, all the Cavs starters will be out after the first quarter?
Yeah, right. So this to paint the picture here for those who haven't seen it, this is easily the highest over-under on the day. It's probably the highest over-under on the week, if not maybe the month. It's 250.5.
Woo!
It's basically like an all-star game at this point. Cleveland's got an implied total over 130. Yeah, so here's my thing. I was here a couple of weeks ago on the show, and it was an OKC Charlotte game. We talked about like taking advantage of situations where offenses or defenses have just kind of fallen flat in a smaller sample size. And we talked about 3-point shooting being a success, and Charlotte went out and balled out and won that game. So I'm taking a similar approach here. Could it go poorly? Yeah, just because while, so Utah has like one of the worst 3-point defenses in NBA history, and it continues to get worse. And so you have a ton of guys that can absolutely smash from that angle. Garland, Mitchell, you get the revenge narrative from Mitchell too. Sam Merrill's been on one. So those guys can absolutely put them in blowout territory against the Jazz tonight. What you have to hope for is Utah doing the same thing. And that's why I think that this game total is where it is. It's also why I think that like Utah has a 118 implied total. Like that's way above their season average. And so if you think this game can stay within 15, it's most likely because the Jazz are able to do the same damage from 3. So to compare the two of them, Utah is allowing the second most above the break threes, the 9th most corner threes, the 6th most mid-range field goals, and the 4th most paint field goals per game over the last 30 days. If you go to NBAstats.com, there's only 5 zones that they cover. They cover 7, but it's like both corners. They're basically getting eviscerated in bottom 5 territory, bottom 10 territory in 4 of the 5 big zones on the court. When you look at the Cavs and what they're doing over the last 30 days, they're allowing the 3rd most above the break threes, the 2nd most corner threes, and the 2nd most mid-range field goals per game, which is essentially pretty much on par with what Utah has been doing in that time frame. So if there's any way to have hope that the Cavs play in the 4th quarter, it's because their defense from above the break and just from 3-point range in general has been awful.
Are we looking at Lauri Markkanen 3-point props?
We are looking at specifically Keontae George, who
he's been on fire.
is averaging 2.7 above the break threes off of 6.5 per game. He's also in a tremendous assist spot and has recorded 11 plus rebounds and assists in 7 of the last 10. It's a nice assist spot for Collier as well. The main guy that you can look to for the corner spot, if you want to take like an alt for his threes, is Svi Mikhailuk, who I know we don't mention much on the show. For those of you who don't know, he's the shooting guard coming off the bench for Utah. So that's interesting here as well. I'm staying away from guys like Ace Bailey who drive a lot. Cleveland's got really good interior defense. So Laurie can get stuff done from the mid range. It's mainly a Keontae George 3-point spot that keeps this close.
NBA. That sport, they're killing me. But I'm gonna do an NBA breakdown tomorrow. Today there's not that. I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games tonight. Damn, the Kings seem like a mess. Also, real quick, I haven't gotten to ask you this yet. Trae Young gets sent over to the Washington Wizards, which I thought was hilarious. Like, Trae Young wants out of Atlanta, and then he goes over to freaking Washington, a team that's one of the worst defenses in the NBA. And yet he can't play defense. So now we're just going to be the Sacramento Kings of 2026 over in Washington, where we're going to put up a lot of points. We might have some stars, but we still can't defend. How are you going to approach the Wizards, and how are you going to approach the Hawks now?
Well, the easiest thing I can give, like the best comparison I can give you, is that they will be the Cincinnati Bengals of the NBA. Like their offense is going to be
a few years ago.
Their offense is going to be really good. Defense is going to be horrible. And their defense was already horrible, though they were making strides with their young core. So I don't know if we're going to see it this year. There's been news reports that they might not play him this year. So this is maybe a conversation for down the road. That also came before they announced that he had an MCL issue. So that's interesting. But when we do see it, I think you're going to see a lot of pick and roll action with Alex Sarr. That could be a really good thing, and what would be his third year, a leap year of sorts for him. It never made sense to me. I think that they have tremendous youth talent, and Trae Young is just gonna. It's unfortunate because if you do look at his career numbers, they're very, very good, and it's just like he's such a bad defender that no team wants him, and so I think that they didn't. The only team that probably could take him would be the Washington Wizards, which I don't really know again what they're doing. I throw my hands up at that, and yeah, we'll see. I can only say that like Alex Sarr would look better in the pick and roll scoring game with him.
Jared Block, what do you guys got going on over at Trinity Analytics?
We have still got NBA every single day. We still have some of that going on. NBA, NFL combined specials. All of our content is essentially all sports, so you kind of get a little bit of everything. The esports season just started back up. We cover that as well, and we're just I think we're like 6 weeks away from spring training, so I'm looking at that. We're looking at what our season-long stuff's going to look like for MLB, so we're excited.
Someone just texted me yesterday, and they were like, hey, can you come on my show tomorrow? And I'm like, sure, what do you want to talk about? NFL playoffs and MLB futures. I go, are you out of your mind? It's January. Someone's going to blow an arm out between now and March. No MLB futures.
Oh, probably 5. Yeah, 5, at least 5. Two big things, though, we can talk about. I'm upset that the Cubs got Alex Bregman.
I'm sure.
I think this was another monstrous fumble by Boston.
Yes.
Like, as a Yankees fan, you should be incredibly stoked about that.
Sure, except the Yankees are just as bad.
I know, but like you had Devers and Bregman, and then you lose both in the same year. Like that is just horrible, and you get outbid.
Bregman said apparently, foul territory, just reporting it, that Bregman was upset that the Red Sox didn't essentially give him the respect he felt he earned.
I think
which is the common theme apparently in Boston.
Yeah, I mean, generational fumble after generational fumble. Like how many you can name them all, right? So
I think it's going to be a good fit for Alex Bregman in Chicago. I'm actually happy for him that he's going there. As for my Yankees, I have no clue what the hell they're doing. I don't know why it's taking forever to sign Bellinger, aside for Scott Boras as his agent. And I don't understand why Kyle Tucker, Cody Bellinger, and it's just a complete holdup of the entire free agency market because of those two. It's
who do you want?
I want Bellinger.
Okay.
I don't want Kyle Tucker can't do anything outside of give us a good bat.
I mean, I would worry about his injury history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Bellinger. I hope he stays. The Yankees need a bullpen, though. Their starting rotation, if Garrett Cole can come back and be Garrett Cole, is going to be great. They just need a bullpen to get them through the end of the game. But that's the history of my teams. We don't finish games. That's just the way I live. Jared Block, thanks as always for coming on the show. Jared R. Block is where you could find him, and here every Monday. Trinity Analytics, Props.cash. See you next week. Good luck tonight.
You too.
I've got the propaganda of the day, the most bet on props coming over from BetMGM for Monday Night Football, the last game of the wildcard round. Let's see if you're on the same side of the public or not. This is propaganda. You are not going to like this. The most bet on prop of the night. Joseph Rodriguez, I am sorry. I'm about to ruin your night. Nico Collins is the most bet on player to score a touchdown tonight. Houston's receiver has scored in one of his last 4 games. Nico Collins over 68.5 receiving yards is getting 99% of money. So with Kenneth Gainwell over receiving yards. Aaron Rodgers under longest pass completion. Christian Kirk under receiving yards. Johnny Smith over receptions, MVS over receptions, and Connor Hayward over 1.5 rushing yards. That's hilarious. Those are your most bet on props of the day, according to BetMGM for Steelers, Texans. Everyone in the world is going to be on Nico Collins. My advice would be a Nico Collins over longest reception if you want to bet them. Do I agree with his props? Well, these aren't his props. These are John Ewing's most bet on props at MGM. If you would like to fade the public, then you bet the other side. If you think the public's right, then go with them. But the only way then, if Nico Collins to score a touchdown and Nico Collins over 60.5 receiving yards are 2 of the most bet on props of the day, then the only over I would play on Nico Collins is his longest reception. I do think a lot of people are buying into Kenneth Gainwell. Again, if you would like to zig when everyone zags, you could go with Jalen instead. Aaron Rodgers, no one thinks he could throw the ball far, but that number's booked at 32.5 for a reason. DK Metcalf, yards after catch. Be careful. Be careful there. The rest, I don't really care. MVS probably gets 1 catch. Do I have NBA propaganda? Do we like Schultz? Jose, I'll bring up Schultz. He's in Prop Queen Edges of the Day. You'll hear about it. John Ewing. Let's see if he's got NBA. Oh, yeah. He just posted it an hour ago. There we go. I don't have much of an opinion on these because I didn't do NBA today. But I'll show you them just so that you can have it for reference. The NBA most bet on props of the night. Sam Merrill over points. Joel Embiid over points and assists. Brandon Ingram under 1.5 threes. Danny Wolf under rebounds, and Johnny Furphy over total points and rebounds are your most bet on props of the day over at BetMGM for tonight's NBA slate. And just in case you do care, even though we're more of a prop show, the most bet on teams to cover tonight in the NBA are the Celtics, the Jazz, and the Raptors. Just keep those in mind. I've got the prop queen edges of the day. Hold on. Okay. I had to get rid of someone. Prop queen edges of the day. We'll start with the away team, the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud over passing yards tonight stood out. I really like the matchup for Stroud. He is facing this Pittsburgh defense that has been allowing the 3rd most passing yards per game. 76% of quarterbacks have gone over their passing yards prop against Pittsburgh this year. Stroud's averaging 244 passing yards a game when up against teams that are bottom 10 against the pass. And on the road, he's averaging actually 260. He's averaging just over 19 passing yards more per game on the road this year because he's throwing the ball a lot more on the road. He's gone over in 4 of 7 road games. His pass attempts and his pass attempts prop. He's actually averaging 7 more pass attempts per game on the road as well this year. I was looking at the pass attempts for Stroud, but the numbers aren't numbering. Overall, he's averaging 30 pass attempts a game against teams bottom 10 in pass attempts allowed. It does go up on the road, though, to 35. He throws more on the road, CJ Stroud. Pittsburgh's allowing the fourth most pass attempts per game. 65% of quarterbacks went over their pass attempt prop against Pittsburgh. The only thing you have to worry about with CJ Stroud would be if they have such a lead. If you feel like the Texans are going to blow him out, then he's going to stop throwing. Otherwise, if you think this game's somewhat close, that the Steelers put up somewhat of a fight and CJ Stroud has to keep his foot on the gas, the pass attempts, according to the numbers, are there. 35 on the road against teams bottom 10 in pass attempts allowed. So you could look to CJ Stroud. I'm going to fade CJ Stroud, though, in the ground game. I wouldn't be betting this. I'm not betting an under either, but I'm just staying away. He's actually gone under 12.5 rushing yards in 7 straight games. He hasn't been running much since the concussion. Oh, I forgot to tweet out that we're doing prop clean edges. He hasn't been running much since the concussion, obviously. Clean edges in Monday Night Playoff Football now. Maybe he does now because it's the playoffs. Maybe he runs more now because it's the playoffs and he's like, ooh, like winner go home. I'm staying away from the ground game because until I see that CJ Stroud's going to run again, I'm done. But Pittsburgh has allowed the 9th least rushing yards per game to quarterbacks. 60% of quarterbacks in the last 10 games went under their rushing yard prop when facing the Steelers. But on the flip side of that, against teams that are even top 10 in rushing, like in teams that are really good against, like in containing mobile quarterbacks, CJ Stroud's still averaging 15 rushing yards a game. So the number is off at 12.5. It's just of late since the concussion, he's not running. So it makes sense for the numbers of late. But if CJ Stroud is CJ Stroud, this wouldn't be an under. But I'm just staying away because he just hasn't been running the football as much. Both the tight ends, Dalton Schultz, Cade Stover, great matchup for tight ends. Houston, this season, has allowed the 7th most receiving yards per game to tight ends. Dalton Schultz, I absolutely love this man. I am pretty sure in his wild card, in the wild card last year, I'm pretty sure I hit his over in the first game. Pretty sure. I tend to go over on Dalton Schultz receiving yards or longest reception. This number was just a little too, it was spot on the longest reception number, but the receiving yards number was pretty off. Against teams bottom 10 against tight ends this year, Dalton Schultz is averaging 67 receiving yards a game. I mean, I don't want to bore you with the stats, but the Colts 55 and 73, Arizona 76 receiving yards, Seattle 98 receiving yards, Denver 77 receiving yards, the Jags 39, but then he faced the Jags again and had 53. So he has been crushing this number of 43.5 when facing teams bottom 10 against tight ends. It's just the question of why have the Texans been so good the last month against tight ends? Who have they faced? Dalton Schultz is a really good veteran tight end that can have a lot of success against this Houston D. Even on the road against teams bottom 10 against tight ends, 64 receiving yards a game. So I'm going to go with the over on the receiving yards for Dalton Schultz. If you would like a lower number to bet on a player that maybe I was looking, can 2 tight ends go over? And in fact, they can, because there have been 5 games this year where Pittsburgh allowed at least 2 tight ends to go over their receiving yards prop. 61% of tight ends have gone over their receiving yard prop this year against the Steelers. 63% of tight ends went over their longest reception against them, 57% over receptions, but I like receiving yards. This year, Cade Stover's averaging 16 receiving yards through 3 games when facing teams that are bottom 10 against tight ends. He's gone over 6.5 yards for his longest reception in all 3 games. So maybe you do over 6.5 yards for a longest reception for Cade Stover because he probably is going to have 1 good catch, realistically. I like Schultz over the most. He's like compared to Tyler Higbee of the Rams game. We had Tyler Higbee over his longest reception, and that cashed in the first half of the Rams-Panthers game. We go with the vets in the first round of the playoffs. And that, for CJ Stroud, is the reliable Dalton Schultz when Nico Collins is getting every freaking defender on him. Dalton Schultz is going to be the one. Everyone's on Nico Collins tonight. Dalton Schultz for me. That's my player to watch. The Pittsburgh prop queen edges of the night, the home team. Yes, I'm going to back somewhat of the public with the Aaron Rodgers unders, but not on the longest completion. I actually like his under passing yards the most. Under completions was intriguing, but because it went up from 20.5 to 21.5, I don't like it. The passing has been about the same, 204.5. He's gone under 204.5 against top 10 pass Ds in all but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's faced 6 top 10 pass defenses and went under in 5 of those 6. Aaron Rodgers is averaging 184 passing yards per game at home in those matchups against teams with a top 10 pass D. Houston has allowed the 6th least passing yards per game, 204, right on the dot. 59% of quarterbacks have gone under their passing yards prop this year against Houston. Aaron Rodgers under a lot of pressure tonight. Take the under on his passing yards if you want to take a Rodgers prop. As for the running back, Jaylen Warren, I like a lot of his unders as well. If the Steelers are playing from behind, they're going to have to try to throw the football. Can't run too much clock. But Jaylen Warren, rush attempts was pretty spot on. But the rushing yards, I saw it at 52.5. He's averaging 46 rushing yards a game against the top 10 run D. His longest rush, he's averaging 10 yards per longest rush. His prop was 12.5. So my numbers were a little bit below where the prop market is. Warren's averaging 48 rushing yards a game at home. He's gone under actually in 5 of 8 home games. For reference, he's averaging 71 rushing yards per game on the road. So they are utilizing Jaylen Warren a lot more on the road rushing wise. 63% of running backs went under their rushing yards prop against Houston this year. 68% of running backs went under their longest rush prop this year against Houston. So look to Jaylen Warren unders as well. Pittsburgh tight end Pat Freiermuth. We made money on his over last week, and we are going to fade him this week. The number dropped. You heard it earlier on the show with Jared Block. I said I am freaking pissed because I am a hypocrite who told everybody when they got the Prop Queen guide at the PropQueen.com newsletter this week, all of the premium subscribers, I said, go bet these props before they move. And I did bet a few. But the Monday Night Football game, I said, I'm going to kind of see how the market moves. Pat Freiermuth went from 35.5 to 31.5. I am pissed. Did I bet 31.5 under? Yes, I did, because I think he has about 20 receiving yards today. However, we're going to go under on the receiving yards because against teams top 10 against tight ends, Pat Freiermuth is averaging 18 receiving yards a game, 14.5 yards per longest reception, and just about 2 catches. Houston has the 7th least. They've allowed the 7th least receiving yards per game to tight ends. 56% of tight ends went under their receiving yard and longest reception prop. 61% of tight ends went under their reception prop against Houston. 3.5, the under's minus 130 now, so it did move a bit in our favor. DK Metcalf's back, so don't be surprised if a lot of the targets end up going to DK. Pat Freiermuth had a nice week last week, but the number 1 wide receiver is back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Valdez-Scantling 2 TD as well. Is Adam Thielen a fade with DK back? Can't decide because Rodgers lost one of his security blankets in Washington. Depends on the number. Fade in receiving yards, fade in receptions. Which market are you trying to fade with Adam Thielen? Let's take a look. Because obviously Adam Thielen the last 3 weeks, 49, 14, and 43 receiving yards. So been really good. Receptions, 4, 2, and 3. Receiving yard long, 17, 11, and 28. I wouldn't say he's a fade. Like, I wouldn't be betting an under. Maybe you go over longest reception. No, over longest reception. Because here's my thought process with receiving yards and longest reception. Receiving yards are obviously most of the time higher. So you need more quantity, most likely 2 to 3 catches for Adam Thielen. If you're worried about Adam Thielen not getting the number of receptions, when you look at Adam Thielen in the last 3 weeks, he's had a 28, 11, and 17-yard catch. And on 3, 2, and 4 catches. So if you feel like there is a chance that DK Metcalf is going to take away from Adam Thielen, then maybe there's one catch that Thielen becomes available in wide open space. And he's like, this number is very low for a longest reception prop at 10.5. I mean, like you said, that's a first down. So if you could get a good longest reception prop number, then that could be a way to potentially play Adam Thielen with DK back. So I'm also very biased towards longest reception props. I hate betting receiving yards overs for wide receivers. Your handicap could be spot on and you could just pick the wrong wide receiver. That's the worst part about receiving yard props for wide receivers. At least tight ends, there's a method to the madness. Teams are bad against tight ends, probably means that they're weak at the linebacker position, and that's going to lead to a tight end having success in the middle of the field. When it comes to wide receivers, again, yeah, every wide receiver is a little bit different, but you could have a similar handicap for two different receivers in the post, and someone's going to go off for the big game, and you pick the wrong receiver. So that's always my issue with wide receiver props. But if you do like a wide receiver, I only really will bet longest reception because there is a way to quantify a player that is really good in catching a deep ball or yards after the catch against teams that are bad against wide receivers, bad secondaries. Usually there's going to be some kind of blown coverage at some point. And if you believe that to be the theory and you don't know which wide receiver to choose, then choose the receiver that you feel their longest reception prop's too low and they potentially have the chance to expose some kind of defensive gap that they can go over on a longest reception. So, yeah. Longest reception props for me on wide receivers. My best bets of the day. And I have a PrizePicks lineup. Royal Locks. If you're paying attention to where I'm going and how excited I get over certain plays, then you will know exactly what my Royal Locks are. This is the PrizePicks lineup. Usually I do 250 to make 750. Today I just played it a little conservative. It's the playoffs and we'll see. I also got iffy numbers, so I wanted to make sure. Got a pretty good number actually on Dalton Schultz. It's 43.5 in other spots. So 41.5 more than receiving yards for Dalton Schultz. Less than 32.5 receiving yards for Pat Freiermuth. $100 to pay you $300 on this two-legger. So yes, those are my favorite plays of the day. Also bet them at Pikkit, so you can see that over at Pikkit, I have these bet individually as well. I don't like to just bet a parlay. I like to bet those sides equally. So even if I go one-on-one, maybe I make a little bit of money. Pat Freiermuth under receiving yards. He's getting a defense top 10 against tight ends. DK Metcalf is back. Freiermuth averaging 18 receiving yards a game against defenses top 10 against tight ends. Dalton Schultz has the playoff experience. He's a veteran, and he's averaging... Now I was trying to do it by memorizing. Schultz is averaging 67 receiving yards a game against teams bottom 10 against tight ends, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have been allowing some of the most receiving yards per game to tight ends. Fifth most in the league. 61% of tight ends have gone over their receiving yard prop this year against Pittsburgh. So those are my Royal Locks of the night. Shout out to PrizePicks. More than 41.5 receiving yards, less than 32.5 receiving yards. Have you ever thought about charging a commission on your Royal Lops or propaganda? What do you mean? What do you mean charging a commission on them? What do you mean? The newsletter is pretty much the commission, but the newsletter is all for where you could get all of the information. Pretty much if you love all the info I give out and you want that in your inbox, Marley's watching the show. If you want that in your inbox, everything I give out, all the info I say on this show every day for an hour, yes, you have to pay for it. And yes, here on the show, you get it for free. But if you want it and you don't want to have to go through the show and get the summary, then every single stat and all the research I give out is in your inbox at the propqueen.com newsletter. So definitely check it out. The guides are all there. I'm actually today giving 50% off of the Prop Queen guide. If you use promo code WILDCARD, you can get 50% off of the guide. So not only can you see it for the props for tonight, but you can also see if the guide is something that intrigued you for the divisional round. I'll be doing a cheat sheet and a guide going into the divisional round. Again, went 6-0 this weekend using the guide. Doesn't mean all the picks are it doesn't mean every bit of research is going to be spot on and right and that all the props that are indicated in that guide are going to hit. It's really just meant to be an information system. So this way, if you have a job that requires a lot of energy and time, you don't have to do a lot of the work. I'm doing it for you because that is my job, is to help you out. So go to thepropqueen.com, subscribe to the newsletter. You can get some free stuff on there, but then you can also get the paid premium subscription to get way more. Good luck to all your bets tonight. I will see you tomorrow here on the Prop Queen Pod, 5 p.m. Eastern Time.